beats, the beats, the beats.
Yahya Khalil, a legend in his own time. He's one of the most respected and talked about drummer, band leader, creative producer, star maker and jazz musician, a phenomenon in the music scene today. At the age of 4 in his home country Egypt, he used to drum on any household item he could find, tables, chairs, kitchen utensils, and make beautiful music to the ears. Unlike most children, Yahya was in no way uncertain about what he wanted to be when he grew up, a percussionist. It was not until his father brought home the family's first radio that Yahya discovered his jazz music was his true calling. At the time, jazz was literally unheard of in Egypt, let alone the alternative musical genre, and it was in the West. But for the avant-garde Yahya, it was the perfect vessel for his passion for music and his untamed rhythmic energy. When he reached 13, he formed the first jazz band in Egyptian history, Cairo Jazz Quartet. This musical group, his contemporaries say, inspired all other jazz and Western music groups of today. In 1965, at the age of 21, when his band had reached its zenith of popularity in Egypt, Yahya Khalil decided to go to America to study, play, and meet all those musical giants he heard play when he was still very young over the waves through Voice of America's Jazz Club radio program. He stayed 15 years studying and drumming in the United States. In America, he joined the American Music Conservatory for 2 years, after which he was tutored for 5 years by the legendary percussionist Roy Knapp, acquiring a diploma in percussion. Mr. Knapp has taught many musicians that later on turned out to be real superstars like Gene Krupa. Khalil also toured America with a succession of American jazz, soul, blues, and country bands. Bands like Friends and Lover, Rasputin's Touch, Richard Berry, and many others. His sound is a blend of authentic Arabic music cast in a raw jazz instrumentation with Yahya's powerful drumming at the center of it all. Khalil captured the imagination of Egypt's youth, serious jazz and rock fans, and patrons of modern music in Cairo. Yahya Khalil has played in more than 20 countries, 100 cities, and performed in over 5,000 concerts and events over the last 40 years. He has been the host of a program called Jazz World on the Egyptian national television. For 40 years, he has single-handedly created the contemporary Egyptian popular and jazz music scene and put himself at the helm of the jazz movement in the Middle East. He has a huge and growing fan base that attends his regular concerts and consumes his music with passion. Today, Yahya Khalil is doing what he does best, reinventing his musical identity and pushing his creative limits to new and undiscovered dimensions.
The beats, the beats, the beats.
So usually at the beginning of any interview, I say we have the pleasure to interview, but this time I personally have the pleasure. I'm really proud to interview the great jazz legend, Yahya Khalil. How are you doing?
Fine.
So we really enjoyed the concert, big time. I just needed to ask you something. When you were young, you used to drum on any available thing on earth. So how is it important, since you have a kid now, how is it important to discover the talent of the kid and maybe push him to work hard to make it better?
Actually, you know, if you taste your kid when you have a kid and you want to see if they have a talent, you taste them by let them, you know, use different instruments and see what if they can create a sound out of them or anything like that. And then, you know, you will discover that if he have a talent in one of the instruments, you will see it. And then you will push him to study it, you know, and you get him an instrument, you let him learn, you know, and he develops. That's how it happens. And depending on how talented he is, how far he's going to go with the talent. You know, sometimes people play an instrument because they just like it, and so they play for a little bit, and then, you know, it stays with him as a hobby. There's people that keeps developing, and then, you know, they become professional at it, or creative at it, or that kind of stuff.
So jazz depends on improvisation big time, but at the same time one could study jazz. How could one study a very undecided or unexpected tune? How is it? No,
studying, when people study, they study the music, they study the form, they study, you know, many things has to do with how you create the music, you know. But when it comes to improvisation, you study, but when you improvise, just you have to know the rules.
Yeah.
But you still, you know, you create on that rules, because there's a way to create things on rules, you know, and that's how it happened. It's not only about improvisation. It's one of the very important. Yes. It's also about syncopation, which is about the time, how you phrase the music and how you play it and what kind of a time. But generally, jazz is something, you know, people either they love it or they don't, and either they have the talent for it or they don't. And if they have the talent, then they can develop it.
Yes.
And it's easy that way, you know.
So talking about improvisation, is it difficult or easy? It might seem easy, maybe.
It's easy for who loves this kind of music, because it's based on that. So if you love jazz, then you try to, when you learn all those beautiful melodies that they created, but all the great guys, you know, you listen to them how they improvise on it, how they play around the melody, how they create other melodies that sounds a bit different, and different melodies, and they fit each other and becomes like a solo, and that becomes improvising. You know, you develop that style. Jazz is the style, so it's like if you have it in you, you know, you will learn all this stuff and it becomes easier.
So do you think, like when the African slaves came to America, like more than 100 years ago, did they ever think that their kind of music that they were playing would one day dazzle the world and become a genre of its own?
Of course, they didn't expect that, you know, and you know, when Africans went to the America as slaves, and they were, you know, they were building the country and they were working in the fields and all this stuff. They had the roots of what jazz is all about, you know, but also all the different European people that they were in the States at that time, all the immigrants, they come up with different countries, they come with their culture, they affected this kind of music, they helped develop it. So we cannot say that, you know, that jazz is only African music. No, it comes from Africa, the roots is African, but jazz became an international music because it's affected by different societies, by different types of people, and it has its own magic, you know. When they went to the States and other communities, they were listening to the African guys, they saw that there's a magic thing about their music, so they got involved.